Welcome, everybody. My name is Peter Hickey, and I'm the president of the Institute of Advisors and the CEO of Mouse. And it's a pleasure to be here today. We want to talk about how to fast track your business advisory practice. And we're going to be going through some methodology, some tips. We're going to go through a three-way model. We're going to go through some costing tips. We're going to be going through what we think you should be doing and how you should be focusing it. And we're going to be going through a staged grid that we've done that talks about what we think is best practice in an advisory practice. But first of all, to start off with, the Institute of Advisors was established in 2009 and now runs certification programs in 9 countries around the world. And I'm really proud to say this, and we haven't admitted it, we haven't announced it formally, that we have just received from the Australian government the rights to launch a diploma of business advisory. So we've been running our certificate course, which is an accredited certificate course, but we've now just going to be launching in the new year a formally accredited, nationally recognized training course, which is a diploma of business advisory. And you'll be able to upgrade from our certification course. So as part of what we do as an institute, our goal is to try and look at a set of standards across the board, across the world, try and educate business advisors, whether you come from an accountancy background, a financial background, whether you come from a strategic or a business owner moving into advisory. Our goal is to try and get us all on the one page and talk about a set of standards that we can all move towards, and to make sure that the quality of our advice is maintained at that level. If we get too many uneducated people that don't really understand what advisory is all about, then that will lead to a reduction in quality of our industry. And I think it's really important that we safeguard against that. So I'm going to be going through, and I think probably the first thing here is that that a lot of people, when they first set up advisory, they think it's really hard. They think it's really, really hard, and they make this. They come up with a complex way of approaching clients, and it's really not that hard if we have the right business model. And this profession it's a wonderful profession. It helps others, and it can be so rewarding for you, whether you've moved into it from another formal profession of wealth planning or accountancy, or whether or not you're setting it up as your full-time job. So it's important that, and we boil it down to, why do people make it so hard? And I think probably because there is no set of standards, there's no sort of framework to it. That's the first one. But I think in essence, it's about confidence. And if we look across this group that we've got, on this call, that you sort of think, how confident are you in offering advisory services? And if you're not confident, then it becomes very, very difficult. And so how do you gain confidence in advisory? And that's one of the hard things. We see a lot of advisors that are accountancy firms that want to do advisory, or people that want to set up advisory, and they put it off, I suppose, because they're not confident, and they let other things get in the way. I think what we've got to do is practice. We've got to practice to try and help us to improve our skills. And you're not going to become a good advisor overnight. As Malcolm Gladwell in his book, The 10,000 Hours, we need to practice to become a good advisor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some framework around that of how do you build your confidence? How do you become more confident in what you're offering? I think to start off with, let's just look at the fundamentals. I'll just ask for a little bit of interaction here. If our goal is to tell you how to fast track your advisory practice, how to become a good advisor, you know where we should start? We should start with asking the question, what do we think makes a good advisor? So just from the group here, what do we think makes a good advisor?
May I say something?
Yes.
Probably in this advising industry, however we call it, it is very important to develop listening skills.
Good. Fantastic.
Hear what people really want. And if I was thinking for myself, if I am not able to respond immediately, I will definitely make some time buffer to go back in my office and do some brainstorming with people who know something, and then come back to client and do presentation. That's
good. Okay, so fantastic. So the most important thing is listening skills. And we're going to talk about that in a second in our best practice. Active listening. There is some really good active listening skills as well. What are some other characteristics of a good advisor?
Empathy, Peter.
Empathy? Yeah, having empathy. So yes, so how do we have empathy? You know, we nod our head. We understand what you're going through. That's it's good. So empathy is critically important. See, do you notice what I'm not saying here? I want to extend this and just ask more things, but we're not saying mathematical skills straight up, and we're saying other things here, right? Which is not what you probably expected me to say if I'm talking about how to build a business model.
Well, it's relational.
Yeah, sorry, big button.
It's relational.
Relational. So you've got to be able to build relationships. Emotional intelligence is something that we all should be having a look at. What else should we be having a look at? What else makes a good advisor?
For trying to get trust from others.
Trust. Yes. So building trust. I mean, I can have all the goods. I can have all the active listening. I can have everything else. But if I haven't built that trust, now trust is a funny thing. How do we build trust? And actually, that's not a bad segue. Just for a minute or two. How do we build trust?
We build it over time by building a relationship.
Good. We build it over time through a relationship is one way to build trust. That's fantastic. Yeah. How else do we build trust?
We do what we say we're going to do.
Good. Okay. So we become reliable. If we say we're going to get back to you, we'll get back to you. If we say we're going to give you a proposal, we'll give you a proposal. That's good. Well, how else do we build trust?
Competence level is very, very important. If you have a competence and an understanding of the material and an insight into the business just by virtue of spending years in this, that's what generates trust, because they say, well, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, good. Okay, so having that experience and displaying that you've got the knowledge, and remember there, Ray. I mean, that's a really important point as well, because when I spend $20,000 or $30,000 on a business advisor, then what am I doing? I'm spending $20,000 or $30,000 on you. So you look around the room here. I'm spending $20,000 on you, and you. So I'm not buying a product or a service. I'm spending the money because I trust that you can solve my problem, or I trust that you have the experience to take me to the next level. I think the other part is we need to have that credibility displayed, as in the material that we present. It needs to be professional. The reports, the analysis tools need to be professional. To become, if you do a course, like if you go through our certification course, to have a logo or a certified brand on there, that's important for building trust, for building credibility. And if we bring that down, the more trust, the more credibility, then what happens to your conversion rates when you're signing up prospects?
Increasing.
They increase. Therefore, more clients, more revenue for your practice. So if we start at the fundamentals, and we looked at all those things, and we just sort of probably put a couple more here: professionalism, credibility, likability, self-development. I think self-development is key. There's a whole lot of things I'm going to be talking about when we go through the iceberg later on. There's a whole lot of things I'm going to be talking about, and I really think it's important for you to go away and look at this material: emotional intelligence, active listening skills, on balanced scorecard, when we review the balanced scorecard, strategic planning, all these things. That self-development is key, for you. Being calming and reassuring, motivation. I can't tell you how many times I've been with a client where I've had to motivate them because, the client starts off with you and the client says, Pete, I really want to engage your services. And, I'm excited about this. And from what you say, I'm excited about it. And I'd like to take my business to the next level. And so we start an engagement. But what happens is that during that engagement, firefighting issues, employees resign, products blow up, all sorts of headaches happen. And then what you've got to do is wrestle with the fact, and their business owner is wrestling with the fact that, Pete, I'm working 12 hours a day to try and solve these issues. I haven't got time to do this development. And so sometimes to be motivational, to try and boil things down for them, break it down, and to say, hey, look, I understand that, but do you know, if we spend the extra time now, you're going to save time tomorrow. And, if you're always hitting against a brick wall and you don't, what makes you think that if you keep hitting your head against a brick wall, it's going to stop hurting? It's not. So we need to be able to have some motivational skills, but of course have the fundamental strategic skills. So I would assume that all of you in this room have got the experience. You've got the some sort of a background that gives you those analytical, strategic planning, financial, whatever skills it is. It's the other side that makes a good advisor, plus your business model. So it's really important that we understand this, that we self-develop, that we broaden ourselves. I want you to think of yourselves as GPs. And then the second stage from there is to analyze what's wrong and then develop a pathway for them, which could include specialists. So in a business, a specialist might be a venture capitalist expert, it might be an HR expert, might be whatever. But your first goal is to be holistic and to take that approach. So that's what makes a good advisor. If we think about what makes a good business, on the other side of a coin, what makes a good business is obviously cash and strategic planning and systems and people management. And we have what we call a high performance diagnostic that we go through with a business, where we actually rank them in different areas to see, whether or not they've got the basic characteristics of a high performance business. And one of the things that that we do is when we go through that analysis and we're thinking about our business model, we're thinking about your practice, there's one question that I sort of think of. And I think, well, if I started talking about all the things you need to have a good business, then, we could extend this, and we do in our training courses, infinitely. But if I want to just give you probably what I think is one of the biggest tips that you can have, if I'm talking about you building a successful advisory practice, and then I talk about the biggest impact you can have with a business. And if I put that to a question to you, what is the number one reason for failure of business owners and CEOs around the world? So the number one reason for failure of CEOs and business owners around the world is
not taking action.
Yep, is
not taking action.
Lack of strategy execution. If the number one reason for failure of business owners around the world is lack of strategy execution, or they don't get things done, what could we do within our business model? What's one thing that I think is part of the three-step process to a good business model? What do we need to do? We need to build Yeah.
We need to have a strategy for starters.
Yeah, well, we need to have a strategy, yeah, Ian, but we need to then make sure that we help the business owner to implement that strategy.
Yeah.
So it's about strategy execution that's really important, right? So, so if I just have a look at the business model, the biggest difficulty that we have in advisory is it's a real juggling act, because as the president of the Institute of Advisors, I want you to nurture your clients. I want you to provide great advice and give them lots of nurturing. But you know what? I also want you to build successful and profitable advisory practices. Because if you can't build a successful advisory practice, then we're going to have less business advisors. You're going to be less motivated to do it. So our industry needs a combination of profitability and client value. And we think about some of the things we've sort of said. What sort of things add to client value? Well, you know, like we've got client focus. In other words, instead of saying you need this, and that was one of the first things I ever did. I used to assume that people wanted to grow their sales. I used to assume that people wanted to drive their profitability. And what I found was that sometimes people just felt out of control. Sometimes people just felt lost. Sometimes business owners weren't enjoying, and they wanted to get out of the business. They wanted an exit plan, and they didn't know how to develop it. So the first thing we need to do is be client focused, or say, where are you? You know, where do you want to go? What's holding you back? How do you feel personally about this? So I think there's that personal side. As an advisor, it's not, and if you come from an accounting background, you're really focused on that, you know, set of financials, that solution delivery model. Whereas in advisory, it's more about finding out exactly what they want, finding out exactly what they're going through, and then working with them on solving problems. So it's not assuming, it's not being assumptive, looking at holistically at the big picture, being emotional, so emotionally connecting. One of the things is, if ever I get asked, Pete, I'm in Victoria or I'm in the US, in California, and I want to, can you refer an advisor? I won't refer one advisor. I will refer 2 or 3, because the difference between a good advisor and a poor advisor is not just their knowledge. It is their emotional connection to the client and the way they handle that relationship. And so really your skills and all your clients are going to be different. So in this group, given that we all have the same skills, some of us are going to appeal more to some clients and some are going to appeal more to other types of people. And so it's about you knowing who you are and emotionally committing to that. So we also need to be able to understand the big picture. And the big picture is, I'm going to show you a grid, a cycle, which is a really good visual of the big picture, which we're going to talk about in our monthly review meetings in a second. And then the accountability. I want you to set up now, if you build accountability in a practice, what does accountability look like? Accountability probably looks like a monthly review meeting or a quarterly review meeting. So this is where it's a juggle act, but the number one reason for failure of business owners is lack of accountability. Guess what? The number one way to build a profitable advisory practice is to have monthly recurring meetings. So what you're doing to your business model by understanding that is really enhancing it and helping you as a practice to make your practice more profitable. So I think it's important. You know, lots of business advice when they start off, they've got no marketing plan. They've got no target market. They haven't thought about what they're offering. And you know, technology is a wonderful thing. We have a wonderful, like we've got 93 people that have said they're going to be on this call today. Now that's 93 people. We've heard from, I think Eric was in Ghana, and we've got somebody else was in South Africa, and we've got the US, and we've got, you know, all throughout Australia, and we're in lockdown. So we can deploy a business model through webinars. We can deploy a business model through training. We can deploy a business model through one-on-one face-to-face. So when I first started off, I was a one-on-one face-to-face. And the biggest problem with my business model was I was being an author. I was producing business plans and doing the work. The most smartest thing you can do is to help develop that plan, develop that strategic direction, boil it down to a set of actions and tasks and a scoreboard, and then review it each month or each quarter, depending on your practice. Now, all of you got different practices, and we won't go into it. Jan, who's sitting up there in Queensland, has a broking practice, and a monthly review meeting may not suit his practice. So, but generally, for a general advisor, setting up that monthly or quarterly review is highly profitable and where you should be going, and it'll give you the biggest impact. And of course, this is a labor rate business. So technology, you need to be able to produce reports. You need to be able to do an analysis. You need to be able to do cash flows and financials. You tell me one accountant today that wouldn't be familiar with the accounting softwares from Xero to MYOB to QuickBooks and practice management software. You know, in all our interactions these days, and as an advisor, you need to have that relationship building program. You need to have client discovery tools. You need to have monthly meeting tools. You need to be able to understand technology to a level where you can recommend it to your clients as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And we're going to segue at the end of this. I'm going to give you some referral paths as well to get some more information.
Peter,
we did this.
I think the one thing that's come out of this whole COVID thing, especially from my point of view, is that I spent half my life on aeroplanes flying around the country to go and see clients and obviously dental practices and the like. And now what's going on is that it's all being done by Skype or Zoom. But the really amazing thing is that, you know, my clients are using their mobile phones and taking videos of their dental practices and sending them to me. And you know, it not only, and we're spending more time face to face by technology than what we ever were in the past. And you know, from a financial point of view, it's just been so good for me as well as them, and such a big time saver for everybody.
Yeah, and fantastic, Jan. So, and it's an exciting time, isn't it? I mean, like, Jan, you've got accelerators on your website. You've got, you know, calculators on your website. You've got automatic lead generation stuff. And then you've got report writing tools. You've got a whole myriad of stuff. So technology, don't be hindered by it. It's a great opportunity for all of us to build a more successful practice. And with technology, you can build trust and credibility a lot quicker because you're leveraging the work that's been done by other people that have spent millions of dollars putting this tech sets together.
Well, I got about $10 million worth of business that bonuses that we didn't even find. And it's just come to us by way of technology because we've got that technology today. And that's exactly what these managers and owners of practices are looking for. You know, quick, saving time but getting the end result. That's the thing.
Thanks, Jan. Yeah, that's some good comments. This grid here we developed mainly when we're talking to bookkeepers and accountancy practices. It applies to all advisors. But, you know, we see a lot of accountancy firms that first get into advisory and they say, I am a business advisor, and they're very CFO and financial focused. And even when people come out from a CFO background, from a business, been working in a large multinational or a smaller business, you think that that's the answer. That is not the answer. And if you put a banner up and you're calling yourself a business advisor, then in our book on the grades of business advisor, you would be a very poor advisor. The next level is to be client focused. Now, that's some of the things we talked about. You know, where are you? Where do you want to go? Where do you see the big picture is? What's affecting you? What's the biggest impact? How do you feel personally about what's going on? So if you're capable of being client focused, of not assuming, not being assumptive, then that client focus then probably bumps you up to the next level of being an average advisor. In our book, if you're just giving or providing a strategic plan to them or providing a CFO analysis without that accountability, then you really, to me and to the Institute, to our frameworks, it's that accountability that makes the difference between that jump up to a good advisor. So setting up accountability both within the firm. So you need to be able to talk to the firm as well, to the CEO, about building that accountability structure internally in their business and to set up projects and tasks, but then to have a monitoring system externally, to have that monthly review meeting. And I want to try and relax you with how easy it is to set up a monthly review. I'm going to show you a template in a second. The next jump is to look at the big picture and to be holistic. So, when we're going to that monthly meeting, we're not asking about sales and profits in isolation. We're asking about a whole lot of other KPIs that are strategic based. And we're understanding where they fit in the big picture. And then the final part is automating it. So making sure the client has an automated system, making sure the employees have an automated system. Because if it's not automized, if it's not systemized, then it just won't happen. So we've got to put systems around everything that we do. So it'd be interesting there for you to rank yourselves just on that scale to see where you think you are at the moment and to look at what else you need to do, what else you need to read, how you need to develop to get to the next level. So, we talk about in the Institute and in our training programs how to be a good advisor. We sort of talk about that business coach. When you think about a business coach gets with an athlete. And I've got an athlete and the athlete is currently running or says, I want to be a better sprinter. What does a sports coach do? A sports coach doesn't just assume everything. The first thing the sports coach does is it benchmarks the performance of the athlete. So what can you run 100 meters in right now? What would you like to run 100 meters in? Over what time frame? Why do you want to run that fast? What's your goals? And then we boil it down into a whole lot of things from how you take off from the blocks, how you build into your stride, how you finish, what sort of training programs. And if we're training for sprinting, we don't just train for sprinting. We might be doing some long aerobic work, then anaerobic work. Or we might be doing strength and conditioning. We might be doing diet. So there's a whole lot of things we look at as a sports coach. And remember that most athletes will get a sports coach. Most businesses don't get access to an advisory service or a coaching service. And I think that advisory, part of what a good advisor does is they set up this accountability structure, which is very similar to that sort of coaching process. And if we look at it, if we take that analogy, if you think of yourself as a sports coach, the first step in a business is to say, where are you now? Well, okay, so I've got $2.5 million in revenue. Where do you want to go? Well, I want to get up to 5 million revenue. Okay, good. So what's your growth path at the moment? And most importantly, what's holding you back? What do you need from us? What do you feel you're challenged at? If you could wave a magic wand, what could we do to help to solve that? Have you got the cash? Have you got the capital? Have you got the systems? Have you got the strategic plan? Do you have motivated staff? What's holding you back? And the client might know the answer to that. So that's where we need to pull. And the Institute has access to a whole lot of diagnostics as well that we can sort of run through. But we want to find out what's holding you back. That's step one. Step two is, right, well, that's where you want to go to. That's the problem you've got. Let's develop a plan. So let's put a plan together. Let's develop a plan and let's help you solve your problem. Now, the most important part here is that we break that plan, whether it's expand internationally, launch a new product, improve customer service, redesign our website, whatever it is. First of all, you may not be an expert in this, but that doesn't matter. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to be an expert in project management.
Yep.
And you need to be able to take these things and be able to project manage, right? Or what do we need to do to achieve that? Do we know what we need to do to achieve that? Let's get the staff together and have a brainstorming session so we can come up with a plan. And then at the end of that session, let's put together a whole lot of specific actions that we can sort of drive this forward. So we want to sort of come up with a plan, and then we want to hold the business owner accountable to that plan. So typically, if you think about what you're going to do in that first meeting, if I said, right, I want to engage your services. So Jeff or Matt or Burton or Mark or Malene or Harvey or Eric or Ian, whoever it is on the call, or Max, you're now going to set up a monthly review meeting. What are you going to say during that meeting? You're charging $1,500 for that meeting once a month. What are you going to say during that meeting? What are you going to do? How do you make an impact in that meeting? Well, I can tell you from lots of research, lots of experience working in our own practices and helping to build literally thousands of other advisory practices over the years, I think there's a really simple formula for that. And the simple formula to give you the highest impact is to start that meeting off with, what were your successes over the last month? What were your obstacles? What held you back? What didn't go right for you, right? And then, so that's step one. Step two is say, what did you say you were going to do during that month? What do we have that we're going to achieve that month? And what didn't we achieve? And then the third part to it, which is really, really important, is a scorecard, a business scorecard. And the business scorecard is something I just want to give you just a quick insight into what that should look like. So your business scorecard should really be, it makes that monthly meeting really, really powerful. It makes you effective. And remember, the more effective you are, the more the client's going to continue to pay you. The more the client's going to brag about how good their advisor is and refer your services. And the more other advisors that come in contact with you will refer services to you. So the number one way to make that more powerful is, first of all, to start off with a soft questioning of how are you? Yeah, be understanding. Then be programmatic almost on, this is what we said we're going to achieve. Did we achieve it? And then we teach and we delegate that is something that the business owner needs to do with their staff. They need to have the same process with their staff on a monthly basis. And that needs to be a top-down type approach. And then the next thing is that scorecard. We need to have a scorecard. And to understand that scorecard is, and it's probably, I'll come at the scorecard by just giving you this analogy. And the analogy is, what sank the Titanic? So most of you will say it was an iceberg, and it was an iceberg that sank the Titanic. There were some contributing factors, but it was an iceberg. Which part of the iceberg sank the Titanic?
Under the surface.
The one underground.
Yeah, it was the one under the ground. So
under the water, sorry.
Right? Under the water.
Yeah, sorry. I said it wrong. Yeah.
I mirrored you just to make you feel good. I mirrored you. How's that?
Oh, goodness.
It's what's under the water. So you're dead right. But so what happens is when we're looking at developing a scorecard, most accountants or business owners will look at what their sales or profit are each month. But it's not the sales and profit. The sales and profit is, it's what's in the, it's what's out the back. We've already driven past sales and profit. It's not a predictor of the future. So what you need to do is to have some way of predicting the future, of some way of putting your strategic plan or direction of the business so it's not up to this airy-fairy, but there are measurements that lead to it. So if we have a look at that, you cannot, so if we wanted to improve our sales, how do we increase our sales? Well, one way to increase our sales or our revenue is to have our customers happier. So the more happier our customers, the more we increase our sales. And so if we have a look at how do we increase our customer satisfaction, well, we have better quality products, or we have our people that are better trained. So, but where does the training program come from? Innovation. We need to develop a training program on customer service. We need to train our people. Once we train our people, our customer service improves, and then our sales improve. So in any functioning business, we need to be able to focus on KPIs that are multi-focused or strategic focused. And so if I bring that back to make it really easy to give you an example of what I'm speaking about and bring it back to what would be a sample of a really good monthly review template, right? So if you're looking at what to do at the end of each month, we're going to develop a business scorecard. We want to take that business scorecard. So that's part of what we would do when we first start working with the client. We'd say, what are the appropriate KPIs, key performance indicator, or goals that we're trying to achieve? And it's not just sales and profit. So sales and profit are there, but it might be cash, which is another financial metric, but it might be number of sales calls, number of web visitors, conversion rates. These are the elements that we don't really see. It might be number of newsletters that we sent off, might be the number of social media posts that we're blogging. So what we want to do is develop that business scorecard. So to give you an example of what it could look like, here is a sample almost monthly review form. So on the left-hand side, if I go through this and I want to work with the client, I'd say, what were your successes last month? I'd say, what were your obstacles? Then I'd say, how did you go, top left-hand corner of the iceberg, how did you go on your revenue and profit? Right? They'd say yes. Then how did you go in your other KPIs? And what we do is we delegate. Now, you don't have to have all of these. You could have, if you took a business owner from thinking about sales and profit just to 3 or 4 other ones, that would be a start. You probably want to get to 6, 7, or 8. You probably don't want to be monitoring 15. But what we want to be doing is just looking at some other indicators of performance which tell us that our strategic plan or our direction we're going is the right direction, and there's nothing that's going to come up. And then we go back down to this action plan of who's supposed to be, what we're supposed to be doing, who is doing it, and how they've done it. Right?
Don't you agree, particularly in this time where, now in Australia, we've got 5 states of which they're all in different stages of lockdown, that this is probably more important than any other time, because a lot of those people are hurting in different parts of the world, the lockdown or whatever the case may be. And I think, it's a great time for us to be able to go in and help them sort of at least just survive their where they are right now, and be adaptive enough to change their business profile to be able to survive this where we are.
Yeah, Jan, I think that's spot on. I think more so though is the second part of what you said, which the scorecard is really important and the action plan is really important. But what you just said then, which is helping them to cope, helping them to pivot and turn, to change their strategic direction, to be their hand-holding, to say, it's okay, we're going to come out of this. But when we do come out of it, let's come out of it stronger and better than ever. Let's go out. There'll be a lot of your competitors that are hurting. Let's come out. Let's have a plan. Let's be optimistic about it. So that support role we do. And incidentally, there is a document that the Institute put together on personal and business resilience that we, if any of you are on the database through the Institute, or go to our certification page, and we'll send you that document, which we do want you to distribute to business owners, because it is a helping document that goes. But look, I think now is a time for the business owners need help, but not just financial help. They need the financial help, but they also need the emotional help and the strategic help. you know, and there's so many people that are, you know, that just, you've just got to think outside the box a little bit and think more holistically. So there's a really good template, if you like, to get you started. I think when I work with businesses, I'll often say, where are you in this cycle? So understand that as you go through that monthly meeting, that things will change, that the environment will change. They could go from a single startup business to starting to recruit employees, which is a second stage. Now, what they could be doing is, you know, they move from the second stage, they might have to invest and go into a loss situation if they're implementing systems and processes, or if they're starting to recruit employees. We've got to educate that, look, you might take a backward step whilst we're training these staff up and while you're learning how to delegate, but long-term it's going to be good. But I understand that's going to be hard for you. So we need to really understand these stages that a business goes through, because if you're successful in what you're doing, you will take business owners through these stages, and you will need to operate in these stages. And there's a different type of mentality you have in what you're doing to support your clients throughout each of these stages. So we sort of find that this is a really good template to use with the client to go through, and just to say, even for client discovery, to sort of say, where are you in this process? So if we summarize where we are at the moment into a 3-step model, step 1 is this initial stage, which is a client discovery. That's a client discovery process. So step 1 is normally this sort of free sort of process of being client focused. Where are you? What's on your back? If you could wave a magic wand, what would you like to solve? How can I help you? Yeah. And there's some phraseology that we can use there. You know, there's one phrase that I've made, you know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. And that one simple phrase is, you know, when they say, how much experience have you had in my industry? How much experience have you had with my type of business? I used to lose clients all the time because I couldn't answer that. And my answer now is, you are an expert in your business. Nobody can know your business better than you. I am an expert in the systems and processes to help to grow your business, and I can help you to put in the accountability and the structures in place to help you to scale, grow, and possibly exit. And so that one phrase, that positioning, is an example of something that can make an incredible impact. Now, we go through in the Institute training courses a whole lot of phrases and marketing and all these sort of elements. But step 1 is that client discovery. And we've got client discovery tools and frameworks and templates that you can use. Stage 2, step 2 is that plan. And generally we see, and we you know, talking to business advisors, you're probably going to be doing something like, how do I get there? Which is sort of formally, it's called a business plan and a budget, but it's really a, how do I get there? What do I need to do? So as formal or as informal as you like it, but that's what you're doing. CFO advisory services, you know, like really engaging, and that's where a lot of accountancy practices are migrating to, but I don't think it's got the teeth to sustain. It's not advisory by itself. Business advisory, what I call it, business advisory, it's good. It's an element of the solution that needs to be there, but it can't be the holistic solution. It's only one part unless we understand the strategic impact of that. So we can offer CFO advisory services, but as a good business advisor, we must understand the strategic part of where we fit. Exit and succession, huge opportunity in exit and succession. We've got, you know, one of our modules on exit and succession. What is it? It's helping business owners to understand how to exit the business, and then business coaching. So there's some of the solutions you can provide. But the third stage is that monthly accountability meeting. So that third stage of the monthly accountability meeting is what I see as absolutely critical to you. And if we want to put that to pricing, because I'm trying to give you as much insight as I can to give you some really high level, you know, sort of guiding posts. You know, if you don't, you know, go through any other training with the Institute or with Mouse, but you know, often that first part is a free sort of process. The second part of that solution or fact finding, you're probably going to charge for it. The charge rates are going to be somewhere, we see a scale of somewhere between about 3.5 and 20K. The average for advisors that we see in the Institute and through the Mouse sort of training programs is probably $3,500 to $8,000. So I will do a business plan for you for 3.5 to 8. I'll help you do an next session plan for you for 3.5 to 8. So I'll just, so 3.5 to 8 is that sort of first preliminary report writing process. Now these are they can be all over the place. They can be as small as $1,000. It can be as high as $50,000. I'm just giving you a range of where people seem to be working from. For the monthly review meeting, we see sort of an average sort of movement or a movement from 500 to 5,000. We see sort of the average is about 500 to 1,500 for a phone or webinar once a month, and 1,000 to 2.5 for some sort of face-to-face interaction. We'll get together once a month and have an advisory board or whatever. So we do a lot of work on costing. How do you cost? How do you build that into a profitable model in the certification program as part of the Institute as well? I haven't got time to go through the phrases now because I want to ask some questions. I probably would just like to highlight this, that typically what we see, the personal blocks, I think the number one stumbling block that most of you have out there is lack of confidence. Yeah. And that lack of confidence comes from because the model seems to be too hard to deploy and you don't know how to deploy it. So I think confidence, building your confidence is very important. Personal blocks can be self-development. You just don't feel like you understand all of this. Another one is the fear of being asked something you don't know. And as an advisor, what you've got to understand is that your role is really not to necessarily always provide them with the answer, but it's to help them find the answer themselves. So to be good at questioning techniques and be able to move that through. The business blocks is really, most of your marketing material is terrible. Most of your positioning is terrible. If I ask you on the spot right now for an elevator pitch, most of the time it's absolutely lousy. There's no confidence in it. It sounds like you've made it up. Get in front of a mirror and practice what you say. Get a video, practice. Just learn that 30-second, 1-minute elevator pitch. That's a block to the business. Understand that you've got, an A, B, and C customers and what you're going to offer to A, B, and C customers. A's are your prime customers. You've got different services. So you could spread that into one-on-one advisory, or you could move down to group sort of advisory coaching. And all of you got different practices. So you have to develop a plan that's specific for a business broker, or a plan that's specific for accountancy practice, or a financial planner, or a wealth planner. So what I'm talking about here is just the prime model for someone that's setting up an advisory practice. But what we do is in the Institute, we look at what configuration of that can you apply to your practice? Who can you work with? So in the Institute, we really want you to collaborate with each other. The strength of us as advisors is our collaboration, is our ability to find other like-minded advisors and be able to offer support, whether it's commission-based or referral-based or part of your practice. That's really, really important. And most of the time I find that the biggest reason for failure of, there's two sets. So the accountants and the bookkeepers in the group, the biggest source of failure is you don't commit to the time, you get too busy, you don't implement it, and it just gets bypassed as a lower priority. You want to do it, but it just keeps getting put on the back pedal. For the people that are setting up a full-time practice, I find the number one reason for failure is you don't think enough about your marketing, and you don't get out there and talk to people. Your number one marketing tool is you and your personal credibility. So that's you being able to talk to somebody, you able to articulate what you're going to do. When a client says to you, how do I work with you? Well, look, we have two packages. We have a gold package that's $2.5K a month, and we have a bronze package that's this. We need to be able to, if somebody inquires with us, have you got your material, your company capability statement? Have you got your referrals? Have you got testimonials of who's worked with you, of who would refer you? If you're part of the Institute, and I'd recommend all of you to go through that certification course, because we're trying to lobby that this will become a compulsory part of what all advisors have to do in the future. But that logo or certification stands you out as a professional. So all of that is, I think it's important to sort of highlight. So the next steps is and the boys are going to send you off. I'll just introduce you to Chris Palmer. Chris, are you there?
Yep, I'm in here. Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
I think I've met a lot of you in here, a lot of familiar faces, a lot of familiar names.
Okay, so this is Chris. Chris is going to set up some more in-depth webinars and just free sort of training, just to give you an idea and demonstrate some of the technology. He's going to send you off an email from that sort of side, which will give you an insight into what technology is in place, what you can use, and how you can commercialize it. So it'll be very product-based and technology-based. And then we also have Taylor in the group. Taylor?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
There's Taylor up the top left. Taylor is going to, if any of you are interested in having a discussion more about the Institute of Advisors and the certification program, then Taylor's going to give you an insight into that. So that's in a separate follow-up call. But the most important thing is, really, that the Institute's goal is to ensure there is a high set of standards across the Institute. The Institute's goal is to ensure that we connect advisors. So whether or not you want to connect and you want to go through the formal certification program, keep in touch with the Institute, go to the webpage, make sure you're on our list for access to the local chapter events and everything that we're doing on that process. And I think, Chris, I think you've got an offer on the software, and I think Taylor does as well, for people that are looking at getting engaged in a relatively short period of time, which I'll let them tell you about as they go through.
Yes.
Okay, so we've still got, guess what? We got 3 minutes. So this is the fastest set of questions. Anybody want to ask any questions? Any detailed questions on the Institute and software is probably best to leave to other people. I want to try and give as much sort of valuable content on the advisory side. Any questions on the advisory side, or what we spoke about, or insights into what we've spoken about?
Peter, I have a question, and it's about a situational environment. And you have these regular follow-up meetings. They can be monthly or whatever you choose for the accountability and so on. Where do you hold that meeting? In their business, or do you go to a neutral place?
Look, that's a really good question, Ray. That meeting, I've generally held on their premises. So generally, I would always hold it on their premises. There is a problem with that, is that they do get distracted and engaged. Yeah. And I think, Ray, it also comes back from whether or not you have a meeting area to do it. So you could, so it doesn't have to be on their premises. It can be on your premises. Lots of advisors that are smaller advisory practices, have a serviced office where they've got access to a boardroom if they're working from home. So it makes them look sort of a lot better. Or you've collaborated with another advisor in the group to have access to somebody else's boardroom free of charge. That's a really good option. I think if you're an accountant or a bookkeeper in the group, you've often got an office with employees and you've got a boardroom. And then, that could be an appropriate sort of place to have. But there's probably no set answer to it. These days, and I would, I don't think also, Ray, which is just a little bit of a segue from your question of, it doesn't have to be just one-on-one, and it doesn't have to be just Zoom or webinar. It can be a one-on-one meeting, and then you could have 3 Zoom follow-ups, and then you can have another one. So there's a whole lot of great mixes you can have where you have a 2-hour meeting once a quarter, but you have a follow-up check-in once a month and things like that. So did that answer your question, Ray?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
I just wanted to jump in there as well, Pete. One of the things we've probably seen a lot of over the last 6 months as well, Ray, is everyone's become accustomed to what we're in at the moment. We're in a Zoom session. I think everyone's getting sick of Zooms, but it's made that virtual or online catch up a lot easier than it probably was 6-12 months ago. A lot of business owners would have sort of shied away from it. However, now we're seeing obviously all of our trainings run like this. We've moved a lot of our live events into this, and it's worked very, very well. So I think don't be too afraid to have these sort of catch-ups. As Peter said, it might be more of a quarterly face-to-face and then a monthly catch-up like this, and that's very easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think good point, Chris. I think what's happened is before, if you said it was going to be telephone meeting or whatever, it was very low priced. Now it's a Zoom meeting, and now we've come, sort of standardized or more accepting of it. The price rates seem to have gone up. So it's really moved in favor. I'm not a fan of building a relationship in the beginning over Zoom, but I am in favor of continuing that relationship. So continuing that relationship, building a relationship build is great for one-on-one to start off with, and then continuing it with Zoom calls and a combination, I think is great. Remember that the more that relationship build happens, the less they're going to be inclined to, sort of to stop using your services. Yeah. But
Peter, can I just ask, when you run your monthly meetings, and you call yourself virtually a project manager, I mean, do you sort of follow up with minutes or action items? Do you distribute anything after that meeting?
Yep. So one of the things there is, personally, I've always used, because we developed it, which was, we had a problem where we started off using Word documents and Excel, that sort of stuff, and, sort of action plans. One of the things we do now is we use KPI dashboard and milestones. And at that meeting, so we give it to the client. So the client is responsible for, or at that meeting, when the client says we need to do a brochure, we need to do, to do a competitive analysis, I then would go to the business owner, well, you're too busy to do it, or you're not going to do it. Who can we delegate this to? And in the meeting, we pull up the technology, we hit a button, and we assign that to an employee in the business. And so there's a recording. So what that does is that automatically, and this is where technology really helps to keep in control of what's happening, because that technology automatically notifies the staff member that's got to do it. It tracks what is virtually, as you talk about, the minutes of the next meeting, because it's tracking what needed to be done. The scorecard, or the KPI dashboard, which has financial, sales and profit and non-financial KPIs, tracks, if you like, a review of performance. And then the dashboard itself has a commentary, which you can put the agenda of the meeting, but you can also put the successes and obstacles and the strategy that you're moving forward with. So in the old days, if you haven't got, sort of the mouse technology set, I used to use Excel and Word, but it was very cumbersome. Delegation was hard. I was responsible for getting the numbers. You really need something that's sort of cloud-based and something that's accountability focused internally. So don't think of technology as just improving your performance. Think of technology sets that you can have a consultant's version of, and the client version works in the business to make it more efficient and help to implement what you're doing.
So, but you're responsible, you're sitting there during the meeting, inputting that information. That's your responsibility.
Yeah, good question. So when we first start with a client, we recommend that the client, and one of the first stages I go through in that first setting up the business is to say, I know you're too busy, and if we set this up right, we need to have a champion in the business that's going to be the person that collects all the KPIs to put in each month. So those KPIs that are put in are provided to you from the organization. And the actions that have been done are done from the organization, vetted not by the CEO, but by who we appoint as the implementation champion. So we almost appoint an accountability champion in the business, and that person is responsible for getting together that side of it. What we do at the meeting is more about a review of performance. The fact that we're sitting there in the monthly meeting means that they're going to be collecting that data, and then we will review the commentary, enter the commentary. So our role is to enter the commentary. Our role is to modify and change, if you like, the actions and milestones, and to, if they haven't done the KPIs, to just talk about what they think their performance is. So you really, if you really want to impact the business, there's certainly other ways of doing it where you can be in control of everything and the CEO is in control of everything. But having been in advisory for the last 30 years, the best way to do it is to get the whole organization engaged in the process, to set up champions, and to have the client that has a stake in what's being delivered each month. And they're the ones that are providing the information. You're reviewing and adapting it and talking at a much higher level. Yeah.
Peter, how much emphasis do you think or advantage is there in an advisor specialising in specific industries?
Oh, brilliant. See, Jam, what you've done in the dentistry is brilliant, because your marketing plan is so simple. You get a big list of dentists, you market to them, your website says you're an expert in dentists, your analysis, you've got dentist high performance business standards, dentists exit and succession planning templates, and your business plan is great. I think what you're doing is a model to what everybody should be doing, which is really starting and thinking about, when I set up the practice, I was very general. When I started to focus, when I built this business up originally and sold it to the multinational and then set up the practice, the second stage advisory practice, I then focused in the IT industry, and I found it much easier. So put it high on your consideration list, high on your strategic planning, to really think through, is there a vertical that I can specialize in, that I can go, and then you can join the local associations involved. You can get involved. Your website, your marketing material, your analysis templates can all revolve around that. Your testimonials all revolve around that. So that's a really good question. Thanks for asking that, Jan. Any other? We've probably gone 10 minutes over, so I don't want to keep anyone over. I'll have one more question if anyone's got one more question. No, all good?
No, I don't think so.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, not for now. I'll think of something after, I'm sure.
Okay, Jessica, thanks. Okay, so so thank you very much for joining us. I hope that gave you an insight. As I said, this is a flavour of what we do in the Institute. It's just the tip of the iceberg, if you like, of part of the content and the in-depth analysis, the research and the training that we go through in the Institute. I would love, whether or not you go through our certification courses, I'd love you all to keep in contact with us. We are setting up local chapters around the world, and we're talking about all 9 countries, including South Africa. Ghana, we're not just there yet, so we might have a chat to you about that. But I'd love to get you involved in more local education events, and even look at some of your wonderful, some of you got some wonderful knowledge, you might have some expert knowledge. So look out, have a look at our certification program on the instituteadvisors.com. So instituteadvisors.com, and then have a look at mouse.com.au at some of the tech sets that we've got and how that can help you to build. The boys are going to get in touch with you if you want more information on either. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy yourselves and good luck with your practices.
No worries. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
And just on that as well, you'll get an email from Taylor and I just with our contact details. So if you do want to reach out with any other questions, you can, we'll be in touch.
Cool. No worries.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.